Commander Jake Sullivan stood in the observation deck of the massive Galactic Council station. Through the thick glass windows, he could see the blue and green planet Kepler 442b spinning slowly below. The planet looked peaceful from up here, but Jake knew better. This station was the center of power for 12 alien races that controlled the entire galaxy, and right now they were talking about what to do with humanity. Jake wore his best military uniform, but he felt small compared to the aliens walking past him in the corridors. Some were twice his height with 4 arms. Others looked like giant insects that clicked when they walked. A few had skin that changed colors as they moved. All of them looked at Jake like he was some kind of pet that had wandered into their meeting. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked up beside him. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had spent the last 10 years trying to get the aliens to treat humans fairly. Her face looked tired today. "They're ready for us," Lisa said quietly. "Jake, no matter what they say in there, keep your mouth shut. Let me do the talking." Jake nodded. He had been an admiral in Earth's Defense Force before taking this job. He was used to giving orders, not staying quiet. But he trusted Lisa. She knew these aliens better than anyone. They walked down a long hallway with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. The ceiling was so high that Jake couldn't see the top. Everything here was built to make humans feel tiny and unimportant. It worked. The council chamber was enormous. 12 different aliens sat on floating platforms, arranged in a circle. Each platform was designed for a different type of alien body. In the center was a small area where humans were supposed to stand and wait to be spoken to. High Counselor Vexithara was the leader of the military committee. He looked like a 7-foot-tall lizard wearing robes covered in jewels. His yellow eyes stared down at Jake and Lisa as they entered. When he spoke, his voice sounded like stones grinding together. "Humans," Vexithara said, making the word sound like an insult. "We have been watching your species for 150 years. You have been given the outer rim territories to live in. You have been allowed to mine asteroids and grow food on dead planets. We have been very generous." Lisa stepped forward. "Counselor, we appreciate what the Council has done for humanity. We have always followed the agreements we made." A different alien laughed. This one looked like a giant mantis with 6 legs. "Followed? You mean you had no choice? You're primitive. Ships can barely travel between star systems. Your weapons are toys compared to ours." Other council members made sounds that Jake guessed were laughter. He felt his hands turn into fists, but he kept them at his sides. Vexithara raised one clawed hand for silence. "That brings us to why you are here today. The Tau Ceti system contains large amounts of dark matter. This is far too dangerous for a young species like yours to handle. You will leave that system within 30 standard days." Jake's heart started beating faster. The Tau Ceti system had 5 human colonies with over 2 million people. Those people had spent decades building homes and farms there, and the dark matter deposits were the most valuable thing humanity had ever found. Lisa's voice stayed calm. "Counselor, our people have lived in the Tau Ceti system for 40 years. Those are established colonies with families and communities. We can't just abandon them." "You can and you will," said another alien that looked like it was made of living metal. "Dark matter can destroy entire star systems if handled incorrectly. Primitive species cannot be trusted with such power." "What will happen to our people?" Lisa asked. Vexithara's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "They will be relocated to work camps in the outer rim. They will mine asteroids and grow food for the more advanced species. It is better work than they deserve." Jake felt sick. Work camps meant slavery. The aliens were talking about enslaving 2 million humans like it was nothing important. "And if we refuse?" Lisa asked, though Jake could hear the anger in her voice now. The mantis alien clicked its mandibles together. "Then we will take corrective action. Your ships are no match for ours. Your colonies have no defenses worth mentioning. We could turn every human world into glass within a week." "It would hardly be worth the fuel," laughed another counselor that looked like a walking tree with too many eyes. "Humans fighting us would be like insects trying to stop a storm." More laughter filled the chamber. Jake watched these aliens joke about destroying his entire species. They didn't see humans as people at all. They saw them as pests that sometimes needed to be stepped on. Vexithera stood up on his platform. You have 30 days to begin evacuation of the Tau Ceti system. After that, any humans found there will be considered criminals interfering with Council mining operations. This meeting is over. Lisa bowed slightly. We will need time to discuss this with our government. Discuss all you want, Vexithera said. The decision has been made. Guards will escort you back to your ship. As they walked out, Jake heard the aliens still talking and laughing behind them. One of them said something about using humans as laborers in the asteroid mines. Another wondered if humans could survive in the methane atmosphere of the gas giant extraction facilities. They were planning out the slavery of his people like a business meeting. When they got back to their small diplomatic ship, Lisa immediately started recording a message to send back to Earth. Jake sat down at the communication station and began encoding everything they had heard. Every word, every threat, every casual joke about human suffering. As he worked, Jake thought about his sister back on Earth and her 3 kids. He thought about the families in the Tau Ceti colonies who were about to lose everything. He thought about how these aliens saw humans as nothing more than useful animals. The message finished encoding. In a few hours, it would reach Earth and the leaders would know what humanity was facing. Jake wondered what they would do. Earth's regular military ships were no match for the Council's fleet. Everyone knew that. But as Jake sent the message into space, he remembered something. 3 months ago, he had received a strange communication from Dr. Ben Carter back on Earth. Carter had asked weird questions about the Council's military capabilities and ship designs. At the time, Jake thought it was just scientific curiosity. Now, he wondered if there was more to it. Maybe Earth had been preparing for something like this. Maybe humanity wasn't as helpless as the aliens thought. Jake looked out at the stars and hoped he was right. Dr. Ben Carter sat in his underground laboratory beneath the Colorado mountains. The message from Commander Sullivan had arrived 3 hours ago. Ben had watched the recording 5 times already, and each time it made him angrier. The aliens talked about enslaving humans like they were discussing the weather. Ben picked up his secure phone and made a call that would change everything. Mr. President, this is Dr. Carter. We need an emergency meeting. The aliens have made their move. 2 hours later, Ben stood in the most secure room on Earth. The White House Situation Room was filled with the most powerful people in human government. President Helen Moore sat at the head of the table. She was a small woman, but everyone in the room knew she had nerves of steel. During the Mars colony crisis 10 years ago, she had stared down 3 alien battlecruisers with nothing but harsh words and determination. Fleet Admiral Rick Stone sat across from her. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his days as a ship engineer. Next to him was General Marcus Webb, who controlled Earth's ground forces. Around the table were the heads of intelligence, defense, and colonial affairs. Show them, President Moore said quietly. Ben activated the hologram projector in the center of the table. Commander Sullivan's recording played out in full detail. The room was completely silent as they watched the aliens laugh about turning human worlds into glass and using human families as slave labor. When it finished, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Those arrogant bastards, Admiral Stone said finally. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking with anger. How long do we have? President Moore asked. 30 days, Ben replied. But I don't think they'll wait that long if they think we're preparing to fight back with conventional weapons. General Webb leaned forward. Our regular fleet is no match for theirs. We have 300 ships, they have thousands. Our best weapons barely scratch their shields. That's true, Ben said. If we fight them with conventional weapons, we lose. Badly. President Moore looked directly at Ben. But we're not going to fight them with conventional weapons, are we? Ben smiled for the first time since receiving Sullivan's message. No, ma'am, we're not. He pressed another button on the projector. The hologram changed to show technical drawings of ships unlike anything in the known galaxy. They were sleek and black, with strange curves that seemed to bend light around them. Ladies and gentlemen, Meet the dark matter fleet." The room erupted in surprised voices. Only President Moore and Admiral Stone had known about the project. Everyone else was seeing it for the first time. "How many?" President Moore asked. 200 ships, Ben replied. "All fully operational, all crewed and ready for combat." General Webb stared at the hologram. "How is this possible? We've been tracking the defense budget for years. There's no way we could afford to build 200 ships without someone noticing." Ben changed the hologram again. Now it showed the Titan shipyards hidden in the shadow of Saturn's largest moon. Massive construction bays that had been disguised as mining operations for the past 12 years. The dark matter extraction in the Tau Ceti system wasn't just for research, Ben explained. "We've been building a fleet in secret since we first discovered what dark matter could do. Every mining ship that went to Tau Ceti came back with refined dark matter fuel. Every asteroid mining operation around Titan was actually a shipyard." Admiral Stone stood up and walked to the hologram. "What can they do?" "They can phase in and out of normal space," Ben said. "Conventional weapons can't touch them when they're phased. They can travel faster than anything the aliens have, and their weapons—" He paused. "Their weapons can tear apart matter at the quantum level." The room was silent again. These weren't just ships, they were weapons beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "I want to see one," President Moore said. An hour later, they were all aboard a transport ship heading toward the Titan yards. As they approached Saturn, Ben pointed out the window. What looked like normal asteroid mining platforms were revealing their true purpose. Massive sections of disguised metal were sliding apart to show construction bays big enough to hold battleships. Captain Amy Brooks met them at the docking bay. She was younger than most ship captains, only 35, but she had been picked to command the flagship of the Dark Matter Fleet. Her ship was called the UES Nightfall, and it was beautiful in a dangerous way. The Nightfall was 300 meters long, but it seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Its hull was perfectly smooth except for strange patterns that hurt to look at directly. It looked like it was made from solid shadow. "Welcome aboard," Captain Brooks said as they entered the ship. "Would you like to see what we can do?" They went to the bridge, which was unlike any ship bridge they had ever seen. Instead of windows, there were screens that showed space in ways human eyes were never supposed to see it. The crew wore special helmets that helped them process the visual information from the dark matter sensors. "All stations ready, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Sam Mitchell from the tactical station. "Take us out," Captain Brooks ordered. The ship didn't move in any way they could feel, but on the screens, they could see they were moving away from the station incredibly fast. Within seconds, they were in open space between Saturn and Jupiter. "Phase. Shift," Captain Brooks said. Everything around them seemed to shimmer. The stars looked different, as if they were seeing them through water. President Moore reached out to touch the wall, and her hand passed right through it. "We're partially out of normal space now," Captain Brooks explained. "Anything the aliens shoot at us will pass right through, but we can still affect normal space when we want to." She nodded to Lieutenant Mitchell. "Target that old satellite." "Oh." Satellite from an ancient Earth mission was floating dead in space about 50 kilometers away. The tactical officer aimed the ship's main weapon at it. Fire. A beam of energy that looked like liquid darkness shot from the ship. When it hit the satellite didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, the next moment there was nothing but empty space. "The dark matter beam disrupts the quantum bonds holding matter together," Ben explained to the shocked observers. "The target doesn't get destroyed, it gets erased." Admiral Stone was staring out at where the satellite used to be. "How many shots can each ship fire?" "As many as needed," Captain Brooks replied. "The dark matter reactors create energy directly from space itself. We don't run out of ammunition." President Moore walked to the center of the bridge. She looked small, surrounded by all the advanced technology, but her voice was strong. "Captain Brooks, are your ships ready for combat?" "Yes, ma'am. All 200 ships are crewed and armed. We've been training in secret for 2 years. My people know. What's at stake?" President Moore nodded. Then it's time to show these aliens what humanity is really capable of. As they traveled back to Earth, Ben thought about the message they would send back to Commander Sullivan and Ambassador Grant. The aliens expected humanity to either surrender or put up a weak fight with primitive weapons. They were about to learn that humanity had been preparing for this day for over a decade. The galaxy was about to discover that the species they saw as primitive pets had built weapons that could reshape reality itself. Ben smiled as he began composing the response message. It would be simple and polite. Thank you for your ultimatum. We respectfully decline. Please remove your forces from human space within 24 hours. He couldn't wait to see their faces when they received it. High Counselor Vexithara was furious. He stood in his private chamber aboard the Council's largest warship, reading the human response message for the 10th time. The words were simple and polite, but they were the most insulting thing he had ever received. Respectfully decline, he hissed to himself. Remove our forces? These primitive apes dare to give us orders? He called an emergency meeting of the full Galactic Council. Within hours, representatives from all 12 species were gathered in the war room of his flagship. The room was filled with the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy. Admiral Kethmore was there, representing the Mantari battle fleets. He was a massive insect-like creature with compound eyes that could see in 17 different light spectrums. His species had conquered 40 star systems before joining the Council. General Zorthak of the Hegemony sat across from him. The Hegemony were living metal beings who could rebuild their bodies after taking damage. Their ships were nearly indestructible. The humans have rejected our generous offer, Vexithara announced. They think their primitive weapons can stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. The room filled with the sounds of alien laughter. General Zorthak's voice sounded like grinding metal. Perhaps they didn't understand the message. Shall we send them a demonstration? No, Vexithara said. We will send them the full force of our military. I want 800 ships. I want orbital bombardment platforms. I want them to see what happens when primitive species refuse to obey their betters. Admiral Kethmore clicked his mandibles together. 800 ships seems excessive for dealing with humans. Their entire fleet is only 300 vessels, and most of those are cargo ships. I want them to feel hopeless, Vexithara replied. I want every human in the galaxy to see what happened to those who defied us. After we're done with the Tau Ceti system, no human will ever think of resisting us again. Within a week, the largest military fleet in galactic history was assembled at the edge of human space. 800 warships of 12 different designs, each one powerful enough to destroy a planet. The smallest ships were twice the size of Earth's largest battleships. The biggest ones were mobile battle stations that could lay siege to entire star systems. Admiral Kethmore commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Void Render. It was a massive vessel shaped like a giant mantis, with weapon systems that could crack continents. He had fought in 30 major battles and never lost a single engagement. As the fleet approached the Tau Ceti system, Admiral Kethmore expected to see desperate human ships trying to escape. Instead, he found something that made him pause. The system was empty. Where are their ships? Asked Commander Sektal, his second-in-command. Admiral Kethmore studied the sensor readings. The 5 human colonies were still there, but no ships were moving between them. The orbital stations were powered down. The mining facilities were silent. They ran, Admiral Kethmore decided. The cowards saw our fleet coming and abandoned their colonies. But something felt wrong. In his 30 battles, Admiral Kethmore had learned to trust his instincts. And right now, his instincts were telling him this was too easy. On the surface of Tau Ceti Prime, Captain Nina Rodriguez watched the alien fleet through her binoculars. She was hidden in a cave system in the Yari northern mountains along with 50,000 other colonists. The evacuation had taken 3 weeks, but they had managed to move everyone to hidden shelters throughout the system. Nina had been a colony defense coordinator for 8 years. She had spent most of that time preparing for asteroid impacts and equipment failures. She never imagined she would be hiding from an alien invasion fleet. Her radio crackled with a transmission from one of the other shelter sites. Nina, this is Shelter Group 7. We count 800 alien ships moving into the system. Repeat, 800 ships. Nina felt sick. 800 ships was enough to destroy every planet in the system twice over. What were the aliens planning to do that required such massive firepower? She got her answer an hour later. The alien fleet spread out across the system and began bombardment operations. They weren't trying to capture the colonies. They were erasing them. Orbital stations vanished in brilliant flashes of light. Ground installations were turned into glass craters. Entire cities were wiped off the map in seconds. Nina watched her home colony disappear under the bombardment. The house where she had lived for 15 years was gone. The school where her daughter had learned to read was vaporized. Everything she had built was being destroyed by creatures who saw humans as nothing more than insects. But the worst part was listening to their communications. The aliens were broadcasting on open frequencies, talking to each other like this was routine. "Work, Sector 7 cleared," came one voice. "No human structures remaining." "Confirmed. Moving to Sector 8," replied another. They were discussing the destruction of human lives and dreams like they were filing paperwork. After 6 hours of bombardment, High Counselor Vexithera himself arrived in the system aboard his personal dreadnought. Nina watched through her telescopes as the massive ship took position near the main planet. Vexithera's voice boomed across all communication frequencies in the system. "Humans of the Tau Ceti colonies. This is High Counselor Vexithera of the Galactic Council. Your settlements have been destroyed. Your orbital infrastructure has been eliminated. Any humans remaining in this system have 24 hours to surrender yourselves for relocation to work facilities." He paused, and Nina could hear the satisfaction in his voice. This is what happens when primitive species refuse to obey the natural order. Let this be a lesson to all humanity. The galaxy belongs to its rightful rulers. You exist only because we allow it. Nina turned off her radio. She couldn't listen to any more of the aliens gloating. But as she sat in the dark cave, surrounded by frightened families and crying children, she remembered something that gave her hope. 3 days ago, she had received a strange message from Earth Defense Command. It was just 4 words. "Help is coming soon." At the time, she thought it was just Earth trying to make the colonists feel better before they were abandoned. But now, hiding in a cave while alien ships destroyed everything she loved, Nina found herself believing those words. Somewhere out there, humanity was preparing to fight back. And when they did, these arrogant aliens were going to learn that they had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Kethmore was studying sensor readings when his tactical officer reported something strange. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the outer asteroid belt. Very faint, but they don't match any known human technology." Admiral Kethmore looked at the readings. The energy signatures were unlike anything in his database. They seemed to phase in and out of normal space, appearing for a few seconds before vanishing completely. Probably just solar interference, he decided. Continue standard patrol operations. But deep in the asteroid belt, hidden among the floating rocks, sleek black shapes were moving through space like hunting sharks. They had been watching the alien fleet for hours, recording everything, waiting for orders. The dark matter fleet had arrived. Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet patrol the empty Tau Ceti system. The bombardment was complete. Every human structure had been destroyed. The message to humanity had been sent loud and clear. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "High Counselor Vexithera is requesting a status update." "Tell him the system is secure," Admiral Kethmore replied. "No human ships detected, no resistance encountered. The operation was a complete success." He felt satisfied. This had been easier than expected. The humans had simply run away when they saw the size of his fleet. It proved what he had always believed about primitive species. When faced with superior force, they always chose to hide instead of fight. His tactical officer was still studying the strange energy readings from the asteroid belt. "Sir, those unusual signatures are getting stronger. I'm detecting them throughout the system now." Admiral Kethmore walked over to look at the sensor display. The readings were definitely not solar interference. They looked almost like ship signatures, but they kept appearing and disappearing in ways that made no sense. Could be some kind Of human sensor decoy, he decided. They probably left behind some electronic equipment to confuse our scanners. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Rick Stone sat in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon. Around him, dozens of screens showed the positions of every ship in the Tau Ceti system. The alien fleet was spread out in a standard occupation pattern, completely relaxed and confident. All dark matter ships are in position, reported Captain Amy Brooks over the secure channel. We have the entire alien fleet surrounded. Waiting. For your orders, Admiral. Admiral Stone looked at President Helen Moore, who was standing beside him. She had been watching the aliens destroy human colonies for the past 6 hours. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with cold anger. Do it, she said quietly. Admiral Stone picked up the microphone. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Operation Shadow Strike is authorized. Show them what humanity really is. Throughout the Tau Ceti system, space itself began to change. Admiral Kethmore was reading a report when his sensor officer suddenly shouted in alarm. Sir, multiple contacts appearing throughout the system, they're everywhere. On the main display screen, Admiral Kethmore watched in shock as ships began materializing out of empty space. They weren't coming from hyperspace or from behind asteroids. They were literally phasing into existence from nowhere. The ships were unlike anything in the Galactic database. They were sleek and black, with hulls that seemed to bend light around them. They moved in ways that defied physics, sliding through space like shadows given form. How many? Admiral Kethmore demanded. 200 contacts and counting. His sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. They're surrounding our entire fleet. Admiral Kethmore stared at the display. 200 ships had appeared from nowhere and positioned themselves around his 800 vessels. It was impossible. Humans didn't have that kind of technology. Captain Amy Brooks sat on the bridge of the UES Nightfall, watching the alien fleet through her dark matter sensors. After months of training and preparation, the moment had finally arrived. Her crew was calm and professional, but she could feel their excitement. All human ships, this is Captain Brooks of the UES Nightfall, she broadcast on all frequencies. We are the Earth Defense Force Dark Matter Fleet. Alien vessels, you are completely surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to withdraw from human territory immediately. On his flagship, Admiral Kethmore received the transmission with disbelief. These humans were giving him orders? He commanded 800 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. No primitive species had ever dared to threaten him. Impossible, he hissed. Humans don't possess such technology. This must be some kind of trick. He opened a channel to his entire fleet. All ships, battle stations. Target the human vessels and open fire. Destroy them all. The alien fleet responded instantly. 800 warships turned their weapons on the mysterious human ships. Plasma. Cannons charged. Quantum torpedoes loaded. Gravitational disruptors powered up. Fire, Admiral Kethmore commanded. The space around the Tau Ceti system lit up with weapons fire. Thousands of energy beams and projectiles streaked toward the human ships. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But the human ships simply weren't there anymore. Admiral Kethmore watched in horror as every shot passed harmlessly through the dark matter vessels. The ships looked solid, but they were somehow immune to all conventional weapons. His most powerful guns were useless. What are those things? His tactical officer whispered. Captain Brooks smiled grimly as she watched the alien weapons pass through her ship like they were made of light. All human ships, the aliens have made their choice. Return fire. The dark matter fleet opened fire for the first time in combat. Admiral Kethmore had seen many different weapons in his military career. He had fought plasma cannons and quantum disruptors. He had survived gravitational bombs and antimatter torpedoes. But he had never seen anything like what the human ships were using. Dark energy beams shot from the human vessels, and wherever they touched alien ships, those ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely erased from reality. A massive hegemony battlecruiser was hit by one beam and vanished as if it had never been built. Evasive maneuvers, Admiral Kethmore screamed. All ships evasive maneuvers. But it was too late. The human ships were everywhere, moving through space in ways that defied understanding. They could phase through solid matter, appear and disappear at will, and their weapons could erase anything they touched. Within 10 minutes, half of Admiral Kethmore's fleet was gone. Not damaged or disabled, but completely removed from existence. The most powerful military force in galactic history was being destroyed by ships that shouldn't exist. Lieutenant Commander Sam Mitchell watched the battle from his tactical station aboard the Nightfall. "Captain, we're receiving panic transmissions from the alien fleet. They're requesting reinforcements and calling for immediate retreat." "Any ships trying to escape?" Captain Brooks asked. "A few, but our outer perimeter ships are intercepting them. No alien vessel has left the system." Admiral Kethmore's ship shook as a dark matter beam passed close by, erasing one of his escort vessels. He grabbed his communications officer. "Send an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. Tell them the humans have impossible technology. Tell them we need the entire Council fleet immediately." "Sir," his communications officer replied with terror in his voice. "Our long-range communications have been disabled. We can't contact anyone outside the system." Admiral Kethmore realized the truth. The humans hadn't just surrounded his fleet. They had trapped it. No word of this battle would reach the Council until it was over. High Counselor Vexithera was in his private chambers when his ship's alarms began blaring. He rushed to the bridge and saw something that made his blood run cold. His mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by ships that moved like ghosts and fired weapons that could erase matter itself. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Humans are primitive. They don't have this kind of technology." His science officer was studying the readings with shaking hands. "Sir, these ships are using some form of dark matter manipulation. They can phase in and out of normal space-time. Our weapons can't touch them when they're phased." Vexithara watched another of his dreadnoughts disappear into nothingness. "Then how do we fight them?" "We don't," the science officer replied quietly. "We surrender." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. The Galactic Council had never surrendered to anyone in 3,000 years of rule. But as Vexithara watched his invincible fleet being erased from existence, he realized he had no choice. Captain Brooks received the surrender transmission 20 minutes after the battle began. Out of 800 alien ships, only 200 remained. The rest had been completely destroyed without a single human casualty. "This is High Counselor Vexithera," came the transmission. We surrender. Please stop the attack." Captain Brooks looked around her bridge at her crew. They had just achieved the impossible. Humanity had defeated the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Alien vessels," she broadcast, "maintain your current positions. Any attempt to leave will be considered hostile action. Prepare to receive boarding parties." In her hidden cave, Captain Nina Rodriguez watched the battle through her telescopes. The alien ships that had destroyed her home were now burning wrecks or had vanished entirely. Sleek, black human ships moved through space like predators, completely in control. She picked up her radio and made a transmission to all the hidden human shelters throughout the system. "This is Captain Rodriguez. The cavalry has arrived. We're going home." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not the primitive species they had believed. The age of alien domination was over. 1 month after the Battle of Tau Ceti, the galaxy was a very different place. News of the Council fleet's complete destruction had spread to every civilized world. Some planets celebrated quietly, remembering their own suffering under Council rule. Others prepared for war, fearing what humanity might do with their new power. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so quiet. Where once 12 proud species had ruled with absolute authority, now only nervous representatives sat around the floating platforms. High Counselor Vexithera looked older than his 800 years. The defeat had broken something inside him. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood in the center of the chamber, but now she was not alone. Commander Jake Sullivan was beside her, wearing the uniform of a fleet admiral. Behind them stood Captain Amy Brooks, in her dark matter fleet captain's uniform. The aliens no longer looked at humans like they were pets. Now they looked at them with fear and respect. The terms are simple, Ambassador Grant said, her voice carrying easily through the massive chamber. The Galactic Council will be dissolved immediately. In its place, we will establish a new galactic parliament where every species has an equal voice. A nervous alien that looked like a walking crystal spoke up. But humans, your technology is clearly superior to ours. Why would you not simply take control as we did? Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. Because that's not who we are. We didn't build these ships to become rulers. We built them to defend ourselves and create a better galaxy, for everyone. High Counselor Vexithara made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded bitter. You expect us to believe that? Power corrupts all species. We learned this truth long ago. Captain Brooks activated a small hologram projector. The display showed Earth's orbital shipyards, but now they were building different kinds of vessels. Medical ships, colony transports, terraforming equipment, construction platforms. For the past month, Captain Brooks explained, our dark matter technology has been used to help, not destroy. We've delivered food to 3 famine-stricken worlds. We've repaired the atmosphere on Kepler 438b that was damaged by solar flares. We've opened permanent trade routes between distant systems using stable wormholes. The aliens stared at the images. The same technology that had erased their most powerful ships was now being used to save lives and build new worlds. President Helen Moore appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. Even as a projection, her presence commanded attention from every being in the room. Members of the former Galactic Council, she began, humanity stands at a crossroads. We could use our technological advantage to dominate the galaxy as you did. We could demand tribute and enslave entire species. We could rule through fear and superior firepower. She paused, looking directly at each alien representative. But we choose a different path. We choose to lead by example, not by threat. We choose cooperation over domination. A Mantari representative clicked his mandibles nervously. What guarantees do we have? What stops humanity from changing its mind once you have consolidated power? Dr. Ben Carter stepped into the chamber. He carried a small device that he placed on the central platform. The device projected a detailed technical schematic that filled the air above them. This is complete specifications for dark matter technology, Dr. Carter announced. Drive systems, weapons, energy generation, everything. We're sharing it with every species in the galaxy. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Sharing military technology with potential enemies was unthinkable by galactic standards. Admiral Sullivan raised his hand for silence. We're not sharing it unconditionally. Any species that wants this technology must agree to the new Galactic Charter. No more slavery, no more conquest, no more treating other species as inferior. And if someone breaks these rules? Vexithara asked. Captain Brooks smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then they'll discover that humanity has had more time to perfect this technology than anyone else. We'll always be one step ahead of those who try to abuse it. Over. The next several hours, the representatives debated and argued, but in the end they had little choice. Humanity controlled the most powerful technology in the galaxy, and they were offering to share it freely in exchange for basic decency. One by one, the species agreed to sign the new Galactic Charter. Zephyrians agreed first, tired of serving the Council's military ambitions. The hegemony followed, intrigued by the possibilities of combining their living metal technology with dark matter systems. Even the proud Mantari eventually signed, recognizing that cooperation was better than extinction. When it was done, Ambassador Grant looked around the chamber at the former council members. The Age of Empires is over. Welcome to the Age of Cooperation. 6. Months later, Captain Amy Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Nightfall, but the ship looked different now. Where once it had been pure black like a weapon of war, now it bore the colorful markings of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. Her mission today was not to destroy but to protect. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Sam Mitchell reported, we're receiving a distress call from the Rigel system. 2 mining companies are fighting over asteroid claims. Both sides are requesting mediation. Captain Brooks nodded. Set course for Rigel, let's go sort this out before it becomes a shooting war. The nightfall phased into dark matter space and crossed 30 light-years in minutes. When they arrived at Rigel, they found two small fleets of mining ships facing each other angrily. Both sides had weapons powered up and were shouting threats over open channels. But when the nightfall phased back into normal space between them, both fleets immediately powered down their weapons. Everyone in the galaxy knew what the dark matter ships could do. "This is Captain Brooks of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force," she broadcast. "Both fleets will stand down immediately and prepare for mediation talks." Within an hour, representatives from both mining companies were aboard the Nightfall, working out a fair agreement to share the asteroid field. No shots had been fired. No lives had been lost. The dispute was resolved with words instead of weapons, as the mining fleets departed peacefully. Lieutenant Mitchell smiled. Another day, another peaceful resolution. I could get used to this. Captain Brooks nodded, but her expression was thoughtful. The real test isn't stopping small conflicts like this. It's what happens when someone decides they want to build their own empire. She was right to be concerned. On a distant world called Proxima Station, a group of exiled Council loyalists were meeting in secret. They had spent months studying the technical specifications humanity had shared, looking for weaknesses. "The humans are naive," said former General Zorthak, his metal body gleaming in the dim light. "They think sharing technology will create peace. But all they've done is given us the tools to defeat them." "Their ships are powerful," admitted a nervous Zephyrian scientist, "but they're not invincible. If we could find a way to disrupt their phase technology..." General Zorthak's optical sensors glowed brighter. "Then the galaxy would learn that the age of human dominance is shorter than they imagine." But unknown to the conspirators, their meeting was being monitored. Captain Nina Rodriguez, now working for Galactic Intelligence, watched their every move from a hidden sensor drone. She smiled as she recorded their treasonous words. Humanity had learned an important lesson from the Galactic Council's mistakes. True peace wasn't maintained by being naive about threats. It was maintained by being prepared for them. Nina activated her secure communicator. "Command, this is Agent Rodriguez. The Proxima Station Group is moving ahead with their plans. Request permission to begin countermeasures." "Permission granted," came Admiral Sullivan's voice. "Show them why planning to attack humanity is a very bad idea." As Nina's drone began tracking the conspirators, she reflected on how much had changed. A year ago, humanity had been considered the weakest species in the galaxy. Now they were the peacekeepers, the protectors, the ones other species called when they needed help. But they were also still the ones with the most advanced weapons in known space, and anyone who threatened the new galactic peace was about to learn that humanity's mercy had limits. The age of cooperation had begun. But it would be protected by the same dark matter technology that had ended the age of empires. Humanity had learned to speak softly, but they still carried the biggest stick in the galaxy, and they were perfectly willing to use it on anyone who threatened the peace they had worked so hard to create.